So today I want to talk about Katie Porter and how to salvage an interview once it's gone off the rails. Now, let me start by saying that anyone can have a bad day. And if you're running for office, the likelihood of you having a bad day is far greater than the average person. And so my intention in making this video is not to bash or pile on Katie Porter, but rather to use what she experienced as a teachable moment for the rest of us, especially people who regularly engage with the media. You know, although there are a number of videos circulating about Katie Porter and her treatment of staff, today I want to focus on her interview with CBS, a CBS affiliate in Sacramento. So she's running for governor. She's a former member of Congress. She's running for governor. And she was asked during an interview with correspondent Julie Watts what she was going to do or how she might engage with the 40% of Californians who voted for Trump. And she seemed to take issue with the question, initially suggesting that she might not need those voters in order to win, or at least that is how it came across. Now, I want to note before I go further that this interview was apparently around 30 minutes. And of course, you know, reporters and media outlets and the public are interested in the most salacious components of an interview. And so, although most of the interview may have gone well, what has captured the attention of the public is the section where she kind of got into a testy exchange with the correspondent, who I thought was very fair. But at any rate, the correspondent, Julie Watts, was asking her how she might engage with the 40% of Californians who voted for President Trump. And she seemed to suggest that she didn't need to engage with them. And at one point, she referred to Watts as ma'am. And then at another point, she appeared to look to staff and she kind of made a laughing face. And it was almost as if she thought the line of questions was incredulous. Again, I thought that, Watts was fair. I thought her questions were appropriate and reasonable and what you might ask of anyone who's running for office. Porter also appeared to take exception to Watts asking follow-up questions. And here's a hint. If you are doing an interview and if you are running for an office as important as governor, you are going to have follow-up questions. That is par for the course. You can't get around it, right? And so at one point, Porter threatened to call the interview. And she told Watts that she didn't want to have an unpleasant experience with her and she didn't want the experience on camera. Keep in mind, the moment you agree to an interview of this kind, the moment you step into the studio and you are mic'd, unless you have explicitly requested to go off the record, cameras are capturing everything. So everything that you say is on the record. It is too late once you've said something that you regret or once you feel the interview is going off the rails. It is too late to say, I don't want this captured on camera because it's already been captured, right? And so this was not the best look for Katie Porter. At another point, she said, I'm gonna call it. And she seemed like she was going to get up. But here's the thing, if you're the principal, your job is not to call the interview. It looks really bad. And even the PR people who are with you, your publicist or your PIO officer, they should only call an interview. And by call, I mean in the interview, if it is seriously gone off the rails and if there's no chance of you making your point. But that's not something that you just say lightly. It's pretty serious, right? But the principal is not the person who should call the interview. And so as I was thinking about this, I felt like this presented a wonderful opportunity to talk about how to salvage an interview once it's gone off track. And so the first thing that I would recommend is if your interview is going off track, that you take a break, that you ask if you can take a break. The reason I say that is if tensions are rising and if you feel yourself kind of spiraling and you are no longer focused on your message, but rather on how to regain composure, you need a beat or two to walk away. And so ask if you can take a break, a 5-minute break. And if you are granted the opportunity to take a break, then I would get up and I would physically leave the room, leave with your staff, and I would just breathe and refocus on what really matters and on why you said yes to the request in the first place. But I would take several long, deep breaths and I would just take a minute to kind of recenter and to regroup. The next thing after you take a break and you come back to the room is apologize. And the reason that I say apologize is reporters have a job to do like anyone else, and their job is no less meaningful than the next person. And so if you feel yourself getting angry, or if you feel yourself, becoming defensive, and you are accusing the reporter of doing something that is untoward, when you go back into that room, assuming that you've been able to take a break, apologize. I think contrary to what most people think, reporters are not out to get you for the most part. Certainly you have, bad players, but for the most part, reporters want you to have an opportunity to explain your position, to clarify why you feel the way that you feel. And you need them to communicate with your audience. They are a resource. And so apologizing and acknowledging, things kind of got off track. I want to apologize for my role on that. Let's try again, can really help to lower the temperatures in the room. The final thing that I would encourage you to do is to remember the big picture. If you're running for office, media is part of the job. Like you need the media to communicate with your base. Now, certainly there are a host of digital tools, but if all of your competitors have sat with this media outlet, you certainly want the opportunity to do so. And so remember the big picture. Remember your why, not just your why for doing the media interview, but your why for being in the race in the first point. And so remember your why and start there. This is why I'm doing this. This is why this matters, and go from there. Now, I'm giving examples of things that you can do in the moment, but a successful interview starts before you ever get to the room. It starts before you ever say yes, right? And it starts after you say yes. And what I mean by that is when you agree to an interview, it is the responsibility of your team to set the terms for that interview. The terms could look like what is going to be covered, how long the interview is going to last. And so your team should set that up, like what is going to be on the record, what is going to be off the record, and how you're going to manage conflict. And so before you ever walk into the room, you should understand what's going to happen. Nothing should take you by surprise. Your team should also prep with you in advance. And if you're running for office, or if you are a leader and you have a series of high stakes presentations or conversations, please visit our website at www.spotlightpr.org and book a 15-minute consultation. And we can talk about the media training services that we provide to help you put your best foot forward. Again, a good media interview starts before you communicate your very first message. It starts before you get into the room. And so the job of PR people is to help put you in a situation where you can put your best foot forward. Your job is to get clear about why you're doing what you're doing, the main messages that you want to articulate, and also take care of yourself. It's really hard to show up and put your best foot forward if you're sleep deprived, if your physical needs are not met, meaning let's say you haven't eaten, or if your schedule is so jam-packed that you haven't even had a moment to exhale. It's really hard to show up and do a good job. And so while your PR team has work to do to help you ensure a successful interview, you have work to do as well. And if you're doing what you need to do and your PR team is doing what they need to do, then you can't help but win. Part of the PR team doing what they need to do is deciding if it's an interview that you should accept in the first place. So all these things factor into how to have a successful interview and how to manage it before it ever begins. Again, if you need help with preparing for a media interview, don't hesitate to go to spotlightpr.org and book a consultation. We do media trainings, but we also do crisis communications and can really help you in telling your story and getting the media spotlight that you deserve. If you like this content, please be sure to subscribe. You can also leave a positive comment. Thank you so much.